On Saturday, the Dallas Cowboys held their blue-white game scrimmage/practice, and we have some takeaways because this defense is looking scary. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you guys in between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with quick hitting videos. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here talking Cowboys 1 week away from preseason week number 1, because the Cowboys will be playing their first game of the year. Well, of the 2024 preseason in next Sunday against the LA Rams. So it's going to be fun. Joint practices are very near as well. So that's also going to be pretty fun. But the Cowboys held a scrimmage or practice, padded work, obviously, and they streamed it live on their social media. Now, some of it was not exactly great in terms of the angles, because sometimes, for example, a play was going on and the camera was fixated on like 3 offensive linemen, and there wasn't a whole lot you could take away from those. But those people who got the boots on the ground, who are working their asses off over at Oxnard, did get a lot of video for us to break down. And I'm excited to get into some takeaways here, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because I've got 3 big bullet points that I want to hit on tonight, and 2 of those 3 are about the defense. And we'll begin with the linebackers, but first, shout out to everyone who is joining the show right now over on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you for tuning into the show right now. We've got Gregory and Katharina over on the YouTube side of things. I can see you saying good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. Let's get to the linebackers immediately. And now, Troy makes an interesting point here. He says, let the freakouts over the preseason record begin. When we get to the preseason games, don't worry about whether or not they're winning or losing, right? Worry about evaluating players. How does this guy look in this role? How many reps does Trey Lance get? How does Trey Lance look? Because I think Trey Lance is going to be the star of the preseason, honestly, because we're going to watch him. We're going to watch him play football. We're going to get some answers. We're going to overthink maybe some of the plays, but it's going to be fun. But also, don't freak out over practice as well, because there's a lot of takeaways that we're going to have that are going to end up being a whole bunch of nothing. Some of them will matter when the season actually starts. We've got Ty, by the way, here on the YouTube side of things. We got Brett over at Facebook. Shout out to Isidro, Carl, TZ915. Shout out to everyone, man, who's joining the show. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to look at some of the clips from Saturday of practice, because we've got a lot to break down, as I said, man. And I think takeaway number 1, guys, to me, is just how crazy this linebacker unit is looking. Because, boy, it is looking exciting. With Mike Zimmer, oh, man, I'm doing a mess with the camera. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen, so I got to have my boomer moments right here. Linebackers, as you guys know, it's going to be much more of a loaded position for the Cowboys in 2024, and that's just because the Cowboys went deeper, right? They added Eric Kendricks in free agency. They have Overshown coming back. They have Damon Clark, who is killing it, by the way, this training camp, and it sure sounds like the Cowboys are loving what he's doing. And they're using this guy, number 11, at linebacker as well. So I just wanted to go over 3 plays that I think I've got here in store for us. By the way, this clip is from John Machota from over at The Athletic, so shout out to him. You should be following him, especially this time of the year. I believe no one gets those clips out as consistently as John does, and obviously there's a lot of good people on Cowboys Nation doing this thing. But, there's a whole lot going on here. Look at, this is an empty set for the Cowboys offense right here that we're working with, so no running back with Dak Prescott back there. And look at where Micah is. First and foremost, this split, his alignment is crazy. Like, Terrence Steele is over here, and then there's no tight end attached to the offensive line. It's more Jake Ferguson flexed out on a 2-point stance. And Parsons, for some reason, is on the outside of Jake Ferguson. So forget about these being like the D gap or anything. This is like, I don't even know what this is. I don't even think this is a wide 9 alignment here from Parsons. It's a little bit crazy. At the last moment, though, he kind of hops inside a little bit. Not inside. I mean, he's still outside of Terrence Steele. The ball is snapped, and Terrence Steele is just not going to block Parsons here. This is going to count as a sack. Why does Terrence Steele not block Micah Parsons? We've got this guy over here, number 18, right? 18 is Clark, right? Man, these linebackers have me going crazy with the numbers. I swear to God, I'm opening the Cowboys roster just to make sure every 10 minutes watching these clips, because everyone changed numbers, right? You've got Overshown going to 13, and then Clark going to 18, which, yeah, I just confirmed that. Sorry. I'm telling you, man, I'm second-guessing every time that I watch a clip. Clark is actually going to shoot is he shooting the A gap or the B gap? He's kind of shooting the both there. But you've got on the other side of things, you've got Ozo Digisugo crossing the face of the guard, trying to occupy the center. So naturally, tackles and guards on the right side, they're taking care of the inside gaps as they technically shoot most of the time. And Parsons gets to Dak no problem. But my point here, man, and I'm not trying to overthink what this is, but the Cowboys are using their linebackers much more often to blitz, is what I'm trying to get to here. The Cowboys are going to have a very different style of aggression with Mike Zimmer calling this defense opposed to Dan Quinn. And when I say that is because, man, I think Dan Quinn was pretty aggressive calling the Cowboys defense during the 3 years that he was in Dallas. He was aggressive in the way that he wanted his cornerbacks to play, right? Cowboys were very focused on getting takeaways, so much so that back-to-back seasons they led the NFL in takeaways, which had not happened since the Steel Curtain days for the Steelers in the 70s. So that's how aggressive Dan Quinn was. And the Cowboys were pretty consistently blitzing guys, but they did it in a different way. I've talked about this on primetime before, where I've described how like Donovan Wilson might walk up to the line of scrimmage and maybe forced the center to work to him, and maybe that freed up Parsons somewhere else or the Marcus Lawrence. But it never seemed to me that Dan Quinn wanted his blitzers, like second-level blitzers, like linebackers or defensive backs. It wasn't that he wanted them to get home. It seems like Mike Zimmer, though, does really want those linebackers to be a part of it. This play is actually the same one, so let's go to the next one. Because then, to be effective with that, the Cowboys got to find different ways to have the linebackers tread them with the blitz. Sorry if you guys had to hear that play, but I've taken the volume down now. And this is what I'm talking about. Look at where Overshown right here is, right between the center and the guard, right, threatening to blitz. You've got the 4-down men also, or like the 4 defensive line type players. And then you've got Marquise Vale very close to the line of scrimmage as well, kind of like giving the Cowboys something to think about. But then the play starts. Bell gets out of there, right? He starts dropping like crazy. Overshown does blitz. The Cowboys have an answer right there, right? They've got a sniffer running back trying to pick up that inside threat because they want the running back on the linebacker instead of having the running back block defensive lineman. And then you see Jordan Lewis also is blitzing out there. You see a lot of crazy stuff right here, and then Dak takes off and run. But I'm not interested in the result of the play. I'm interested in all that the Cowboys seem to be doing, because you've got Marquise Vale, who is the kind of like the off-ball linebacker, honestly, in this scenario. Takes off for coverage. Overshown does go to blitz. And again, man, something different that the Cowboys are doing there. This clip is also from John Machota from The Athletic, by the way. And then you also see a lot of these double A-gap stuff. And guess what? Another John Machota from The Athletic clip. I'm telling you, man, this guy kills it with this, right? This time it's Clark, number 18. And on the other side, you've got Micah Parsons with the traditional Mike Zimmer double A-gap look. And what are they going to do? You know, they're going to rush one. The other one is going to drop back. And the fact that it's Parsons dropping back instead of Clark just tells you, you know, we're trying to be unpredictable. That's what the Cowboys have been talking about. That's what has been said about Mike Zimmer, right? They want to be a little bit more unpredictable. They want to keep people guessing what they're doing with Micah Parsons. I've touched on this a lot of times, right? There's all sorts of opinions. Some people say keep him at the defensive line every single time. Don't move him around. But you can see the benefit here. You can see the case that they're trying to make, right? If Parsons is also dropping back to coverage and Clark is rushing the passer and he becomes efficient rushing the passer, or maybe it's Overshown, or maybe it's Eric Kendricks, if everyone is dangerous doing everything, then it's going to be pretty impossible for teams to be like, oh yeah, this is what we want to do, right? Like, you have Parsons and Clark there, and they both can rush, but they can both drop back to the pass, and they can both do this and that and the other. Keeps the offenses guessing. I'm looking at this practice, and I'm going, I don't know what the linebackers are doing. Every single snap, it seems like they were doing something different, or sometimes they wouldn't rush. And we knew that about the Mike Zimmer defense the moment that he was hired as a Cowboys defensive coordinator. But now we're seeing it on practice, and it becomes pretty exciting, man. Like, you're watching all of this, and you're like, okay, you can see this is actually a very different defense that the Cowboys are working with, which should have been obvious all along. But I also think there was a little bit of a doubt, I guess. At least I know that I felt it when the Cowboys hired Mike Zimmer in January, and you had like this foundation of players that was going to be on the field already. There wasn't a whole lot of defensive free agent signings for Mike Zimmer. It was just Eric Kendricks. And there was a doubt in me that was like, man, are the Cowboys going to ask Mike Zimmer to just run Dan Quinn's defense? Like, don't change everything. Do your thing, but also don't quite do your thing, because we've got something already in place, and the players that we have brought in are to run this scheme, blah, blah, blah. And I was a little bit afraid of the Cowboys maybe not letting Mike Zimmer do his thing, but he sure is doing his own thing. And you can already see it in practice, which again is pretty exciting. Cowboys defense is looking pretty scary, man, all across the board. Would I love the Cowboys to have more defensive line help? I mean, I've banged the table a whole lot, like being like, hey, man, we need more defensive tackles, or at least we need one more guy. I would love some defensive end depth now that Sam Williams is out with an injury, and they're going to ask Marshawn Nealon to be the guy, probably, at least based on what Mike Zimmer himself has said when he was like, now he's going to have to play a whole lot. Cowboys did sign a couple of defensive ends like we talked about back on Thursday, but maybe not mobile. What was that word? But maybe not needle movers is what I was going to say. But, tongue twister, I guess. But shout out to everyone, man, who is joining the conversation right now. I appreciate you as always. Do me a favor, by the way. If you enjoyed the show, if you like the content, hit the like button. It takes about half a second to hit the thumbs up, and it helps us a whole lot getting this show in front of more and more Cowboys fans. Isidro says linebacker play will be a 180 from last season, and that helps the defensive line. That is absolutely true, man. And here's one thing, Isidro, and everyone who is listening to the show right now. It's gotten to the point where I'm like, I just have no clue how they're going to get all of these guys on the field. But I think they will try to find a way to do it. What I mean by that is, had you asked me back in April or May after the NFL draft, who is starting at linebacker, I would have said Eric Kendricks immediately, just because I think he's Mike Zimmer's guy, and he might be the Mike that you want out there, right? The most reliable linebacker on the team, maybe. And maybe I would have been an optimist and said, you know what? Overshown. I think Overshown beats out Clark or something like that. Fast forward to today, though, and I think it's going to be Clark above Overshown. But there are some clips out there that make you go like, how can you not get Overshown on the field? And I sure as heck know Marius is not going to be inactive. He's not going to be a healthy scratch or anything like that. I would expect the Cowboys to really rotate these guys and have them all be a significant part of the games on Sunday. And that's kind of wild to not have like this clear-cut idea of who's going to be starting week one. I think they're going to want everyone on the field. And then with Micah being Micah, the formula just gets much more intriguing, right? I think we're at a point where I'm totally accepting that Micah Parsons is going to move around. I told you on Thursday or earlier, actually, in the week, I told you with Sam Williams going down, I don't know if the Micah experiment will take a hit because maybe you don't want Micah that much anywhere else that he isn't defensive end or, trying to rush the passer through the middle of the offensive line. But now I'm going, okay, they're going to do it because Saturday practice was after the Sam Williams injury and Micah was still out there off ball over the middle of the offensive line. Like he was doing everything still, and he was playing a lot of coverage as well. I just showed you a play where it's Clark and him, double A gap, and the one who drops back into coverage is Micah. So this is totally serious from the Cowboys, and I'm going to respect it. We've had this debate a whole lot of times, but I'm going to respect that the Cowboys are sticking to their story. I'm just wondering how that looks like on game day and what the split is for him. Now, another reason, I'm going to turn the page now from the linebackers, and I'm going to jump to what was originally going to be bullet point number 3. We're going to make it bullet point number 2 just so we can stick to the defense, man. Another reason why the Cowboys defense is looking much scarier than expected, to me, it's got to be cornerbacks are playing great. Specifically, 2 guys, right? Because Jordan Lewis is doing his thing. He's always been underrated. He's having plays in camp. Shouldn't be new to anyone, right? He might not be the guy making millions and millions and millions of dollars for the Cowboys, but that guy is underrated. He is solid. He'll get the job done in the slot. Outside, though, with no Trevon Diggs, you're seeing a lot of Daron Bland. We're seeing a lot of Kellen Carson all over the field. Those 2 last guys that I just mentioned have been on fire. Daron Bland is just otherworldly, man. And Daron Bland really excites me because you're talking about a guy, and I know I'm about to show you a one-on-one, usual one-on-one discourse, right? There's a whole lot that, isn't exactly translatable to game days, blah, blah, blah. Usually the offense, though, is the one at an advantageous spot. But Daron Bland, this is actually not a one-on-one now that I think about it. I want to show you the screen instead of just talking about it, right? Let's see if we can get it here on the screen right now for you guys. Daron Bland has been playing so good, man. This is a Cavante Turpin out route that he jumps and knocks the ball out. Shout out to Brian Broaddus and Bosch Lombardi, man, who always do great Cowboys content. They were talking about how Al Harris, the other day they were talking about this, how Al Harris played, I think it was Brian who said it, the Cowboys played this brand of football, and let me just make sure here. Yeah, this is John Machota, again, from The Athletic. That Al Harris played a style of football when he was in the NFL where he tried to knock the ball out, but not necessarily go for the interception. You know what I'm saying? Just try to knock it out instead of going for the pick and maybe risking a busted coverage or something like that. Daron Bland of the Cowboys, man, the ball is flying out of these receivers when they hit them. And it's so fun to watch. This clip, man, from Daron Bland, who always plays like this off-ball technique and he's remarkable at it. I'm just going to try to pause it here as soon as Daron Bland breaks, right? Look at where Daron Bland is. He's already breaking on that ball. When you look at his foot here, Cavante Turpin has not even gotten into his break. So this is Daron Bland just totally expecting what the offense is doing, and he's been so good at this for so long now. Daron Bland is, I think, a high football IQ player that knows how to set up quarterbacks, which is the reason why he got so many picks in 2023 and why he set the record for pick sixes. And the concern with these kind of players that have that high production numbers, those high production numbers, seems to always be like, is that going to be a one-year thing, especially when you have maybe a couple of bad performances? And with Bland, I'm thinking of like the Commanders game in Thanksgiving, where in the first half, Sam Howell was going to him. He later broke the record for pick sixes in a single season in that same game, right? But there was a moment there where Sam Howell was kind of like picking at him. And then you get the DK Metcalf game when Dan Quinn has to adjust in the second half and get Stephon Gilmore and DK because they were kind of killing Daron Bland a little bit on that game. But Bland is proving, in my opinion, with this strong camp that there was no one-year wonder thing to it. He's totally legit. And we already had a lot of film to kind of prove that. But for this to be a whole different year and for Daron Bland to still be doing what he's doing and honestly beating Dak Prescott so many times, it's so cool to watch. Daron Bland has it, man. And I'm going to be honest with you. When the season starts and when the season ends, I don't know who is regarded as the Cowboys' top cornerback in 2024. Because, man, I know Trevon Diggs is special. Daron Bland is coming off of a first-team All-Pro season as well. So forget about their original draft statuses. There's going to be a legitimate fight to be the top cornerback on the Cowboys. I honestly think there is a scenario where everyone agrees that Daron Bland is the best corner on the team when the 2024 season is over. I honestly think that. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, the Cowboys are good at outside corners specifically. Now, they've also had, as I said, an underrated starter in the nickel. But, man, somebody that earlier in the offseason, we heard Amon-Ra St. Brown go on a podcast, The Pivot, with Ryan Clark. He was asked, hey, man, who is the defensive back that you like to face the least? And Amon-Ra St. Brown thought of Jordan Lewis. And sure, he talked about Jordan Lewis talking some trash and just getting tired of hearing him, which you got to love to hear. Like, if you're a Cowboys fan, you got to love that Jordan Lewis is that kind of player. At least I know I do. But Amon-Ra St. Brown wouldn't have thought of Daron Bland if he wasn't also getting covered. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Jordan Lewis was just talking smack and getting toasted, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown would not have answered Jordan Lewis on that podcast. And you can go back to that Cowboys-Lions game, and you know that Jordan Lewis did his job, honestly. Allowed a touchdown against Amon-Ra, but still was pretty damn good. And then the other one was Kalen Carson. And let me see if I can find this clip very, very quickly. I did not have it loaded up, but man, I've got it right here. This clip is from none other than primetime guest, two-time primetime guest. Hopefully, we'll make it a third time soon here. Joe Hoyt from Lone Star Live. Look at Kalen Carson, and this is not from Saturday, by the way, but this is kind of like just a clip that I wanted to show you guys in case you have not seen it. Look at Kalen Carson running the route for Tyron Billy Johnson here. Let me slow it down right now. Here we go. Let me slow it down right now. You've got Billy Johnson going inside. Kalen Carson goes inside after him. Anticipates that break. Just, man, how wild is that, like, transition right there from Kalen Carson where he's just like, yeah, this guy's going inside. And then he's ready for it. Tracks the football, just blocks it. Man, I legitimately worried about the Cowboys' cornerback depth going into training camp. I feel much better about it now. I feel much better about the Cowboys' cornerback room, and the reason is Kalen Carson. I don't think we've heard a whole lot about, like, Eric Scott Jr. I feel like, and this is more anecdotal than anything else, I'm not sure that I've heard an insider that has been there say anything about this, or like the coaches talk about it. But I feel like I'm seeing Nahshon Wright get burnt a lot. I might not be right on that. I'm not keeping score on that. But Nahshon Wright seems to me like he's getting a lot of time with the first-team defense, with the second-team defense, but maybe not getting the results. Brandon Cooks roasting him on that vertical route on Saturday over the left sideline was honestly just a play where he gets burned with the speed from Brandon Cooks. But I just don't know about Nahshon Wright at this point. What I do know, man, is that if I had to predict who is the number 4 cornerback on this Cowboys team right now, with the way the training camp is going early on, I would confidently say Kalen Carson. And I know there's still some concerns about the speed and about certain traits that maybe Kalen Carson lacks. But he's a guy that can play inside and outside. and he's a guy that is covering receivers, like significant receivers, not just like the bottom of the Cowboys wide receiver depth chart, and looks to be thriving in that area. I do feel like we've heard much more about Kalen Carson than Eric Scott, for example, and that's despite this being Scott's second year on the Cowboys. And the reason why I always bring up Scott is because there was a lot of buzz about him last year with the Cowboys trading up for him. Sure, it was in the 6th round, blah, 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 but the Cowboys still did that, which was somewhat uncommon for them because they like their draft picks and all that. But Kalen Carson might be another steal for Dallas, honestly, at a corner, just like Daron Bland in the 5th. And I see the comments, man, and I don't blame you, right? I don't blame you for these comments. AL says, which we signed Gilmore for insurance. Cedro says, if Gillig wants to stay, he will have to agree to a 1-year contract. Clayton says, it's not too late to get Gilmore, but he's not going to get the contract he's seeking. Brian Thompson said, how good do you feel, Mo? Don't sign Gilmore? Like, is this how good we feel about the cornerback room? I would sign Gilmore. Like, if this was my team and I was running it even with Kalen Carson doing what he's doing, I'm signing Gilmore. The Cowboys are different, though. And I've said this many times, like, I don't see the Cowboys getting that deal done. Because I do think Gilmore gets a fair deal out there before this season starts. Like, I do think there's a high possibility it's a $5+ million deal for 1 year even. Because I do think Gilmore is playing it cool. I do think he's waiting it out. Maybe he already has had some offers, but Gilmore is just playing it cool right now, looking for a better spot, maybe a situation where a team has a cornerback go down or whatever. I do think Gilmore ends up getting the deal that he maybe wants. I don't see the Cowboys doing this unless Trevon Diggs is not ready to go in their eyes, or at least not in the way that they want him to be ready to go. Trevon Diggs obviously already activated from the PUP list, not getting that work in with the team. We'll see if this week that is about to start is any different. I think that's one of the big storylines to follow, but Trevon Diggs, I think, is the real question mark in terms of Stephon Gilmore. And if Trevon Diggs is ready to go by the Cowboys' estimations in the regular season, then I don't think Stephon Gilmore gets signed. I just have not seen the Cowboys do anything that would suggest that they would spend that money, because their free agency signings were Royce Freeman, Zeke Elliott, and Eric Kendricks, right? Pretty cheap deals all across the board. Michael, man, you're touching on an interesting point here. Michael, because Michael says, I'll say this. I think we're good at corner. We can always move easy to corner. And he's at least better than right. I'm going to toss out a question out there, though. I'm going to toss out 2 questions out there, okay? Number 1, is he, though? Number 2, do the Cowboys agree, right? And I think the second question is the real key here. Because, Michael, I watched Izzy Mukuamu play against the Tampa Bay Bucks, led by Tom Brady. And I remember that game. He was handling Chris Godwin on that game. He was doing his job. It was pretty impressive. And I think we all remember that performance from Izzy Mukuamu. By the way, primetime guest Izzy Mukuamu. So shout out to him. I don't know what the Cowboys think of him, though. Because since the spring, Nick Harris from DallasCowboys.com was reporting he's working with the reserves for the most part, right? So Izzy Mukuamu was not really, seemingly, getting a chance to shine in OTAs in minicamp. I don't think we've heard a whole lot about him in training camp. And now he's dealing with an injury, undisclosed. Mike McCarthy did not say when he was going to come back. He did say, like, we'll see. So that was kind of like an interesting way to put it. And Izzy Mukuamu, I don't know if he's going to practice like on Monday. And the thing is, I hated to hear those injury news about Mukuamu, man. Because the way that I see it, regardless of is he good, is he not good, and I have yet to understand why he's not getting those reps at a corner. Because I mean, we've been talking about this since early in the offseason in primetime, where we've been like, man, Mukuamu's got to move to corner because I don't see him making it at safety. Because the Cowboys are not going to carry 5 safeties, and he's not going to be above Marquise Bell and Juan J. Thomas. That's just the reality, right? With the way that the Cowboys safety is looking right now, safety room, one of the strongest positions on the team, can make the argument and say that it is the strongest one with those 2 backups, and just assuming that Bell is indeed back to that full-time safety role, and I've seen him close to the box a lot of times, so I do have some questions about that. Izzy would have to move to corner, the way that I see it. I just don't know if the Cowboys hold him in that high regard as we do, because I think the team might be lower on Izzy than the fans are, and I have yet to understand why, honestly. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, though. But yeah, Izzy's suffering that injury, man, and being held out from Saturday, and then Mike McCarthy not saying when he was going to come back. I have concerns about that, because if it's a serious injury and Izzy goes on to miss, say, I don't know, 2 preseason games, knock on wood, is that it for Mukuamu? It might be, honestly. Like, I do think he needs those chances to prove himself to the coaching staff and make them think twice about letting him go. But we'll turn the page now, though. We'll turn the page now, and we'll talk about the offense, man. Not a lot of takeaways from practice, honestly, on my end from the offense. I do think Terrence Steele was struggling, and I don't know if that's just Micah being Micah, or if Terrence Steele is legitimately struggling at right tackle in pass pro for the 2nd consecutive year. I think that's something to keep an eye on. A lot has been made about the Cooper Beebe snaps recently on social media. I'm not sure I was able to focus on that, so no takeaways on my end regarding Cooper Beebe. It seems like Brock Hoffman, though, is more likely, in my opinion, to be the first team center week 1 than Cooper Beebe, which is kind of different to what's going on the left tackle side of things, where I just don't see Tyler Guyton not being the guy left tackle week 1. But my big takeaway from practice on Saturday was, holy smokes, Hunter Lipke's a bigger part of the Cowboys than we think. And that is exciting. There was a quote from Jerry Jones over the weekend talking about how he's earning a bigger role and all of that, which is exciting. But then there was Mike McCarthy saying in his press conference that Hunter Lipke is getting some work with the tight ends. And you might go, well, that makes sense. Maybe the Cowboys want him to be more of a pass catcher, right? Maybe the Cowboys want to be able to run 21 personnel and be a receiving threat out of the backfield, and then you can generate all of these kind of like mismatches like the 49ers do, where there's a linebacker on the fullback, but maybe if he's faster than the linebacker, then it's game over, blah, blah, blah. And Hunter Lipke did a lot of that when he was at college, so it makes sense. But then I come across this clip on the timeline, and guess what? It's John Machota again. Shout out to him. Oh, man, I thought I was sharing my screen. But then this clip comes across the timeline, and look at where Hunter Lipke is. This is empty. This is empty offense right here, by the way. Trey Lance at a quarterback. You see Hunter Lipke? I'm trying to circle him with the mouse pointer thing. Hunter Lipke is slightly flexed out, not attached to the line of scrimmage, but flexed out as a stand-up receiver. But just don't focus. Just don't focus on the alignment. Focus on the route that he's about to run, because that guy is going upfield and breaking out, like breaking inside actually, but just running a deep route here, Hunter Lipke. And maybe that has to do with the linebacker hitting him. I think it looks like a crosser route, but the linebacker forces him to go upfield a little bit more, right? That's what it seems like to me. But look at how they're using Hunter Lipke in practice. I thought that was wild. And I think I've got another angle on this play. Let me see. Yeah, we do have another angle. This is from Nick Harris at Nick Harris DC. You can follow him on Twitter. You should follow him on Twitter from DallasCowboys.com. And this is just another angle that will make you appreciate the catch. It's a nice grab too. I thought that was going to be incomplete all day long, but it wasn't. So all I'm saying, man, is it seems like the Cowboys are pretty high on Hunter Lipke, and that is cool as well. And that adds more intrigue to the running back room, because I do think there's only one spot that is up for grabs. I think it's Zeke, Rico, Hunter, and then roster spot number 4 for the running backs is going to be between Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman. Today, I would give that a job to Royce Freeman based on what the Cowboys are saying. We'll see how that goes. But I also don't know if the Cowboys are trusting Lipke to be that receiving threat, and he's also working with another pass-catching position, let's call it, talking about the tight ends here, does that impact at all what Deuce Vaughn is doing with the wide receivers? And Deuce Vaughn did not suit up for this practice, by the way. But when Mike McCarthy said that they were trying Deuce Vaughn out at wide receiver, when he talked about that in training camp, he mentioned empty sets. Now, that's the second team, right? That's Trey Lance for the third team. I think it's actually the third team. But if Hunter Lipke does a better job at that, what does that mean for Deuce Vaughn, who maybe was hoping to be a part of those sub packages on offense? Is that another thing that kind of points towards the fact that Deuce Vaughn might be cut? And I bring that up because I know Deuce Vaughn is somewhat of a fan favorite. I think he is, honestly. Last August was crazy when the fan base was just expecting Deuce Vaughn to do these crazy things in the preseason, and then he went ahead and did them, and we were all hyped for him. That's why I say fan favorite. But I don't know now, man. I don't know about Deuce Vaughn. It's feeling like there are a lot of cards stacked against him, unfortunately. And I want Deuce Vaughn to be that guy. I want Deuce Vaughn to be a part of the Cowboys offense. But it seems to me that Hunter Lipke could have the upper hand right now as a receiver if this starts working out for him. Because there has been some high praise for Lipke out of camp. Running back, and he's a lock because he's a fullback, right? He has a bigger role already because he's a fullback. And then also on special teams, he played a whole lot more last year. Let's look at the Cowboys snap counts for 2023. I should have them here very quickly, man. So bear with me, and then we'll get out of here. But Hunter Lipke was out there on special teams, the 4th most on the Cowboys. 61% special team snaps. Hunter Lipke is on the team. He's been on the team for a good while now. So if he fills that role, he's already somebody that you've got on the team. Does that hurt Deuce Vaughn? I think somewhat, right? Like if the Cowboys are confident in Lipke being that guy on the empty sets, yeah, I think that would make sense. Deuce Vaughn experiment, says Clayton, is a failure and we need to move on. And Weston says if Vaughn makes it, it'll be on special teams. I don't know if I would call it a failure yet, but it might be. I'm open to that being the case down the road. And then what Weston says here is interesting because I do think the only way that the Cowboys want Vaughn to be a part of special teams is honestly in kick return. I don't see him anywhere else. Punt return is going to be Turpin. And I don't want Deuce Vaughn out there tackling dudes. I don't think the Cowboys should either. So it seems to me that Deuce's path on special teams would just be the Cowboys deciding that, hey, kick return is going to be important enough for us to have those two guys that can be dynamic out there and have Cavante and Deuce Vaughn maybe there. We'll see. Isidro says Deuce may be on practice squad, and then that becomes interesting because does he clear? Does he make it to the practice squad? Or does he end up elsewhere and the Cowboys do want him on the practice squad? That would be tough, in my opinion, for him to clear waivers. But we'll see how it all goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Thanks so much for being here on Sunday night with me. Joe, I see you in the comments. Don't worry about it. I know you'll catch the replay. But shout out to everyone. Do me a favor. Hit the like button for me. Do me another favor. Keep enjoying your Sunday night. And I'll see you tomorrow on a quick hitting video. And then again on Tuesday. And then again on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we'll be back with the live show. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. Have a great start to the week. Preseason football is going to be back in a week. Preseason football is going to be back. So let's enjoy it. Bye-bye.